Well folks, the final battle is about to await us, but here's the catch to this though, which I'll talk more about that if we get this video started. So, greetings ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Joy here, and once again I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Super Princess Peach for the Nintendo DS. So, last time, we somehow managed to experience 5 stages in Journey Involves in World 8, which does manage to take place in Bowser's Villa, and my goodness, some stages, including World 8-5, is pretty lengthy, all things considered. Especially, not only do we have to find some more puzzle pieces, but also we need to find every single Toad in order to actually access to the final boss in the game. Which, straight to the point, we've already accomplished that. So because of that, so far we did somehow find 15 of these Toads in this world. So as a result, yeah, it did say for the fact that according to what Perry did told us about something, we need to gather every single Toad in order to actually access to this particular point. And by doing so is about the fact that we need to replay the exact same stages over again, but you need to find them on these specific spots. But then again though, you need to pay attention to the forms of Peach's exclamation mark expression, which means about the fact that there might be something over there. So, yeah, you can get the idea for that point. So, anyway, so today for this video is that we are about to be heading off into the final boss in the game. Now, before we do that though, as you can see on screen, I'm actually heading back into Giddy Sky for able to replay that particular stage for the second time, because obviously though is about the fact that, remember when I mentioned about this earlier, since in yesterday, that we are technically missing one more puzzle piece for Puzzle D? Well, it turns out there's actually one of those routes that I somehow accidentally skipped, which as a result, it pretty much leads us to that pipe, as you can definitely tell, which pretty much leads us to the alternate route, and simply put, we need to activate not one, but 2 switches onto that specific spot, because otherwise, if you've done something like that, and also we have to navigate through this particular labyrinthy kind of structure like this, as you can see, and then as a result, if you do manage to find the correct path, like I'm doing right now, basically though, if you do manage to like use the Joy vibe to actually just trying to hover yourself all the way up, and then as a result, once you make it to this point right there, that way we should able to actually guarantee to get ourselves the next puzzle piece, or should I say, the final puzzle piece for Puzzle D. So as a result though, everything else is all completely good, all things considered. So now we've basically gone through all of that. So now we need to head back into Bowser's Villa for able to take on the final boss in the game. So relatively speaking though, I can't even believe about the fact that the entire process is going by a lot quicker than I was expecting, like I said before. So either way, and I suppose we should probably go ahead and check on the forms of the shopping menu quickly, and so much to the point, I'm also buy some more levels for some mini games, ranging from like, you know, Toad Jump, or Toad Shot, or Toad Trot, so everything else will become to expect at this point. So either way, onwards to the final battle as we go. But then again, in order to actually get to this point, you need to rescue every single Toad in the game, because if you miss one or too many, you have to replay through you know, the exact same previous stages as before, but with different stimulations or something. So yeah, still keep that in mind. So anyway, let's get to it. But before we take on the final boss in the game, we need to deal with this one last stylish challenge right there. And similar to the forms of how it does it since in World 3, which is Shriek Mansion, we need to able to once again try to do some scrubbing with these bunch of boos. But then again, that if you dare get hit once, then you have to restart the entire segment again. Although it is definitely a little bit more generous when it comes to giving ourselves a lot of coins in this place. But straight to the point though is about the fact that we can pretty much expect to believe about the fact that this is where the challenge itself gets a lot more tougher this time. Because obviously though, now we're able to actually try to worry about this, you know, homing boos as far as I'm aware, with these glowing eyes and stuff like that. But luckily though, I've managed to do this on my first attempt. So relatively speaking, it was about the fact that once you get the hang of it though, it's not too bad. So anyways, now let's get into the forms of the final boss, or should I say, not 1, not 2, but 3 bosses in this particular final boss phases. So as a result, relatively speaking, I was about the fact that the main threat of this particular final boss is Bowser himself, of course. But before we get to the forms of Bowser boss fight itself, we need to take care of the forms of his henchmen, which appears to be this peculiar Hammer Bro right there. So relatively speaking, it was about the fact I believe the Hammer Bro will stop us from able to proceed to Bowser. So we have no choice but able to take on the forms of that particular Hammer Bro right there. Or should I say, Army Hammer Bro, as far as I'm aware. So either way, we need to able to take him on though. So, and it looks like, if you couldn't tell from the bottom screen, that Peach has actually gone pretty mad mode right now, especially considering about the fact that, unlike the previous bosses, that she was actually likely glad to see not only one of the singular Toads, but also Luigi in one of the worlds. So this time around though, is about the fact that we have no choice but to, like, you know, have some bit of courage and stuff like that. So yeah, Bowser's probably gonna get away. So yeah, let's take on the first of the 3 bosses in this particular part. That's what appears to be none other than Angry Hammer Bro, or should I say Army Hammer Bro, as far as I'm aware. So yeah, he did summon the forms of a bunch of Hammer Bros straight off the bat, and basically though, you have to simply try to go after the Angry Hammer Bro 1, so just in case we can able to actually deal the amount of damage to that particular fight. So overall, it's not too shabby for the most part, even though sometimes when he does that, he will summon even more Hammer Bros, which thankfully though, if you try to take on multitude of Hammer Bros, that way we should be able to actually guarantee to get even more coins thanks to the advanced that particular upgrades that we've already purchased earlier ago. So relatively speaking, this fight is not too shabby for the most part. I mean, sometimes it can be felt a bit of a chaotic moment sometimes, especially noticeable with all the hammers you definitely need to avoid, and on top of that, the unpredictable movements for the Hammer Bros sometimes. But apart from those aside things though, yeah, this fight is not that big of a deal. And now let's get into the actual main fight against with Bowser himself. Because yeah, kind of think about it though, this particular format is radically similar to the forms of how it does it for Princess Peach Showtime, except the fact that rather than just trying to go onto the forms of that 3D shooting kind of segment, so it's all likely in 2D plane. So anyways, let's get to it with the next fight, which appears to be Bowser himself. Now, the weakness as far as him is concerned is obviously we need to activate Anger Mode, so that way we can able to actually go ahead and try to hit him for about 2 times, making a grand total of like 10 hits in total, in order to able to actually try to deal with him off. And eventually, once he's on to the 3 hits left, he actually starts to be able to be activating one of his emotions, such as Joy, which he can obviously try to able to actually stomp onto you, and also trying to activate these little shockwaves too, in order to able to actually just, well, you have to simply try to dodge them, obviously. Now we're on to the next phase of the fight, where he's actually on to Gloom Emotion, where he tosses not only 1, but I would say 5 hammers or something like that. In fact, let me just quickly double check if that's going to be accurate. Oh, just 4 hammers. Okay, I've sort of missed count on that. So either way, chances are though, as long as you were able to be fast enough to try to able to avoid the larger hammers, this should be good to go. And now we're on to the final hit, where basically though, he's now on to the Anger Mode, which means that he's actually a lot more aggressive. So as a result though, just keep on activating the Rage motion, or emotion I should say. And relatively speaking though, if you think we are done here, well, we have got one more fight to deal with before we're able to rescue not only Mario, but also trying to able to beat the game once. And logically though, there's going to be more to it than that coming up. So either way, oh jeez, this looks familiar. In fact, that was before when any other new Super Mario Bros. Games somehow managed able to reuse that particular concept with Giant Bowser of all things. So here we go folks, on to the true final boss in Super Princess Peach. That's of course Bowser in giant form. And I will say, this boss is actually a lot harder than I was expecting, if only because of multitude of factors. Well, for one thing, usually relatively speaking, for the most part it's not too bad. But relatively speaking, for your first time playing for this boss fight though, you might have a hard time with it. And the main premise of this fight, if you couldn't tell, basically though, we need to use these bombs in order to able to do the amount of damage to Giant Bowser. But here's the thing though, the hitbox is a bit weird in this particular fight, because you have to be directly right where the explosion effects will happen, with all that particular bombs, all things considered. Well, it might be hard for me to explain about this particular subject though, because relatively speaking, it was about the fact that, well, it's just one of those moments where the fact that the hitboxes can sometimes feel a bit 2 odd at times. So relatively speaking, we have to let the explosion try to able to hit Bowser's face or something like that, like any other angles. The only exception being is of course one of his 2 eyes, because I'm pretty sure it will not do anything. So I'm guessing that might be the case. So relatively speaking, yeah, it's only a matter of time about the fact that timing is key here if you couldn't tell. Although, if we do die at one point, then we have to restart the entire stage again. So because of that, you have to go all the way back to Anger Hammer Bro again, and eventually, once you're able to actually just, you know, try to do the usual stuff. Now, as soon as we get to the last hit right there, similar to the evolves of how it does it on Glooper Blooper boss fight, if you remember for that particular fight. Basically though, we need to activate Rage Mode again to able to get rid of the actual shield, which obviously though this means that Bowser was actually on calm state. So this means about the fact that if you let him calm for about a few seconds, he will realistically restore his health no matter what. So yeah, you have to take that shield down very quickly, just like the evolves of how it does it for Glooper Blooper since in World 5. So as a result, it might look a bit slightly similar in terms of the evolves of that particular move, but except the fact that this particular boss fight can sometimes feel a bit chaotic at times with all that too many bob-bombs on screen, but as long as you were able to try to do a timing perfectly syndrome, then you were able to deal with the actual final boss, no problem, and straight to the point, we somehow finish the game. Well, again, there's going to be more to it than that until in the future, for specifically the next couple of days in either on May, or in other cases for that matter though, once we make our way to June at some point, then obviously though is about the fact that there's still more content along the way. So either way, nice shot. So either way, so now we somehow rescued Mario, and relatively speaking the day is saved, all thanks to Princess Peach of all things. So yeah, pretty swell, congratulations, yes, because obviously though we've beaten Bowser, so either way, and we can now walk all the way back to the Mushroom Kingdom, and if you're probably wondering what is up with the forms of that particular Vibe Scepter, it was actually still hovering around in the skies above. Well, straight to the point though, I honestly have no idea what we could do with that now, especially considering about the fact that we've kicked Bowser's butt, no problem. Well, mind you, we occasionally get hit a couple of times, worth noting for. But then again though, if you dare manage to run out of those vibes, by the way, you can obviously try to keep on eating up those bob-bombs if you really want to restore the vibe meter again. So just in case about the fact that you don't have to necessarily try to worry about the actual singular death or something. So because of that though, yeah, everything else checks out there, basically. So I'm pretty sure about the fact that we are basically now onto, miraculously, onto the halfway point in terms of the 400% completion in terms of Super Princess Peach. But as far as the evolves of the story progression, as far as we can definitely concerned with, well, you know, like I said before, the day is saved. So either way, now I suppose we should probably explain about this with all that news and discussions alike, because as you can tell, we're now onto the credit sequence right there. So straight to the point though is about the fact that yes, today's date of course there is the 22nd of May today, in some cases in 2025 today, and could you believe it? About the fact that we've only just got about 2 weeks left until not only for the Nintendo Switch 2 is releasing, but also Mario Kart World as well. So yeah, we are definitely getting very close to this point, folks, especially considering about the fact that, well, I really would guarantee about the fact I'm immediately hyped about it still, especially considering about the fact that still, that several days goes by a lot quicker than I was expecting. And speaking of something quicker about it, obviously if you couldn't tell for the fact that the time length for this video is actually very short, would you believe it? Especially because, well, then again, like I stated about this before, that again, I was originally trying to able to actually finish the final boss on the exact same time as when we finished the entire world of Bowser's Villa, but I might able to actually say for the fact that it will take about an hour to able to actually complete the entire world, and I'm like, oh, I'm not having that. So instead, I'm actually going to make this particular video a lot shorter than I was expecting, so just in case we can able to actually taking care of the main stuff first before we're able to hit on to some extra stuff. So either way, so yeah, I'm probably not going to give my final thoughts to this game just yet though, because like I said before, this Let's Play is not done yet, because we are still on to the extra stuff for this point right now. So relatively speaking though, the end as it is. So we got ourselves a nice little art of Peach and Perry as well. So relatively speaking though, once you finish the game, once, by the way, you're able to not only actually access to the final ability of the game, which appears to be Dash Brilla, which is a godsend, by the way, if you want to deal with these enemies a lot quicker and faster, but also about the fact that if you couldn't tell from the bottom screen, extra stages is now being accessible. Well, only in World 1 at the moment, because once you deal with the forms of a boss rematches, as far as I'm aware, you can able to actually unlock even more new stages during the forms of a World 2, all the way up to World 8, I'm pretty sure. So that way, we can able to actually go into multitude of stages, and not to mention though, Toads will now be replaced by the forms of those jigsaw puzzle pieces and the music box as well. So suffice to say for this point, folks, is that we get endings of this point right here. So join me next time for some more of Let's Play as Super Princess Peach for the Nintendo DS. Is that we're about to be heading back into World 1 for the final time to grab some more puzzle pieces and tackle through extra stages as well. So I'll see you guys until tomorrow. Later, fellas.